All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Hillhouse, joined here with Stu Phelps.
Yep. Hello.
Yeah, and we're here to describe our journey through early access with our game Looking for Heals. So, to start off, we had the game, originally the title was Winning Early Access. We decided to change that because really it was surviving early access. It was quite a trek, and we will go into exactly why right now. That is not the right button.
Probably supposed to push something else.
Something else. There we go. Hey, that was what I wanted. All right. So who are we? I'm Jason. That's Stu. All right. We made Looking for Heals. And the battle background of that started off as a game jam project. Got third place in the fun category on Loot 'em Dare. And man, that was exhilarating. Loved it with a great little momentum going there. And so about a year later, me and Stu got together and just figured, why don't we just go all out, make this a full-fledged title. So we put in the effort for about 6 months. And then once E3 came around, we got a little lucky with some contacts over Kind of Funny, and they basically put our early access trailer up on their trailer for early access games coming out, and that's where we started in early access. And for those of you who aren't familiar, let's go into the game real quick, just so you can get a little bit of a refresher. That was us. Thanks to a awesome Russian guy, we were able to get that really sweet trailer music. And that's really Looking for Heals. So who's this talk for? This talk is for, obviously, anyone thinking, just even a little bit, maybe I should put this in early access. Maybe you don't know where to start. And also smaller game projects, because there's a lot of great examples of very popular, very obvious, good examples of early access games out there, also in the roguelike genre and similar action games. But we're going to go over our experiences, which was a very weird, small, and obscure game project that made it through early access. So also, probably a hobbyist, because that's kind of where we started off as, kind of with the Loot 'em Dare style, just jam it out, spare time. I ended up going full-time on the project, but up to that, I'd never actually gone full time on really any game project. So yeah, this is probably going to apply to you. All right, so why do we say surviving? All right, we went in with very modest expectations with early access. We hadn't really seen much about it other than the games we had played, and we really were just hoping for the best. We went with get a friendly community together, chat everything through, little conversations about designs and features in the Discord and the Steam forums. Back and forth discussions about the game to kind of help it, be the best that it could. That was the attitude we went at it with. And very Mumbai, very, very, peace loving and all that good stuff. But
well, I was going to say before you move on, sorry, I was going to say, some of the expectations we had, we knew we had something cool. We thought we had something unique. Essentially, the game, if you couldn't tell by the trailer, was a game where you're a healer. It's a single-player game. You're a healer. You're healing people in the dungeon. You're trying to keep them alive, and that's how you get through the dungeon. And then we wanted to make it a roguelite because, it's a good move. It would seem like a good move to get a lot of content quickly, but also, knowing that it would be very replayable and we were going to look at different builds, different spells. We thought there was probably a lot of balancing, so we we're hoping to get a lot of feedback around balancing and just feedback as we kind of figured out what a weird game was, because we didn't really know the design of the game yet. We were hoping to kind of just launch with that kind of funny, hit that date so we could say it's out now, get some people on board, get some people excited about it, and then hopefully get some good feedback from them. It's a bad feedback, just hopefully get some feedback that we could use, and then just kind of make the game better. So just a little more context on where we were coming from and why we thought early access would be great for us, because we're making a roguelike and we don't know what our game is.
Yeah, it was really just kind of going in with the best expectations over, kind of like just a group chat all day, every day, trying to figure out where the game should go. But it's not really how early access and in the game community in general works. Really, what we ended up getting was bug reports, which I've done in the past. Who doesn't love finding bugs in work-in-progress games? So those were definitely pretty great. The other ones were suggestions. So, every time you played a game, there's no game you haven't played where you just think, oh, if only I could do this. Oh, man, this part was great, but what if you could do this? So that was the other majority of posts we got. And after that, it was mainly critiques and complaints, which kind of comes with the territory. That's game development. That's the kind of game discourse in general, software in general. And then after that, we had a little bit of conversation going. Every once in a while, we get a few chats. Mainly they revolved around kind of update posts and just general call outs. Give us your builds and what are you enjoying about the game. But not really a lot of traction there. Most users, they just kind of want to just post a quick little comment on what they just played and kind of get out of there. Very quick. I'll stay there. So kind of feels more like this when you kind of jump into it after a year, where it's very much, you were kind of looking for the community to, really push the game in different directions and kind of just guys, what do you think about this? But it doesn't work that way. No, gamers, they want kind of just a place to just post their thoughts, kind of see what's, tell you what's going on when they play the game. But we'll just leave it at that. Nothing, that's how it is. All right, so understanding the player-developer relationship. Like I was talking about before, it's really not intuitive. So you go in, want to create a Discord server and respond to people on Steam, but it's not really a back and forth. Really, what it comes down to is on the player side, you're posting your thoughts and your feelings and your experiences about the game. And it's really just it's kind of one-sided. They don't typically want kind of more of a back and forth with the developer. It's really just kind of, here's some bugs I found, here's some suggestions I got. It would be awesome if you did this. But that kind of, it's about as far as it goes. And it's good to understand that from the developer standpoint, so you can go in with that expectation and use it to the best that you can during development. Not for the faint of heart. Because, like you saw, most of the things we got, it's a lot of critiquing, a lot of criticisms, and it's not meant to be negative. That's just how most people, including ourselves, receive games and software and whatnot. So it's good knowing when you go into early access that on top of all the stresses and all the concerns of just either working full time or working hardcore on your project, you're going to need to be able to manage lots of feedback and lots of critique as well. So definitely going with that in mind. And not really for the tough skin either. So it's not really a matter of can you take it. It's a matter of what I think is just going in with practical decision. So what can I use early access for, and what can I use, and what will be best for the community, and what will be best for me interacting with the community. Because otherwise, you can kind of go in with other sorts of mentalities that aren't going to work very well for early access, which we're about to go into. A big one being my game's just not done, but I want to get it out there and see what people think, which we found out was probably not the best utilization of early access.
Yeah, so keep in mind, when as a developer, I think one of the things we should have figured out going in, what my concept of early access was, these are games that aren't finished. People understand that, and they're buying it, and they know it's unfinished, and they're cool with that. But really what's happening, and this is the problem, because neither one of us are really Steam early access people, right? What we found out was, there's definitely a level of polish. There's definitely a level of, kind of a finalized product that they're kind of expecting. And that's how people who really, really do great in early access succeed. And I guess I kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but we'll get around the kind of more details on that later.
Cool. So then let's go into me and Stu's discovered truth of early access. So what we believe early access is, in the end, is definitely a place for gathering bug reports. These are so important, especially in a game like ours that's very item heavy. Mm-hmm. There are literally 30 factorial different builds and statistics and items that you can have. So people finding these things, posting them, it's very important so that when you go into release, you're pretty confident that you don't have any real just gameplay busters. Which is why, finding major gameplay exploits is what's really important. Games, it's this, I forget who said the quote, but most gamers will try to break your game, and that's great if if your game isn't released yet. So it's definitely good to use early access for that purpose. Which is also included in min-max builds, basically builds or strategies in the game that the players can use to just coast through the whole thing without having to try very hard. So, and they love posting that. So it's great.
And I would say like these are the gamers that are kind of into early access from what we can tell. We didn't push hard for any of this. They just naturally gave this to us. It definitely is naturally like a hardcore kind of gamer crowd that's like kind of interested in the development process. So I think, they kind of naturally turn into QA on their own, that's definitely the cool part about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really, really great. And we found you find some people that, I hire them on the spot if we had any budget.
Yeah.
There's some really great players out there that can post some really great detailed bug reports and similar to you. And also, don't forget about the marketing aspect. You see this in pretty much every high-profile early access game. Hades is a great one that's recent. Hades was more or less, the core loop was done. There was no weapon or major system that was going to change, but it was awesome for getting people that early beta access, getting the last few bugs ironed out, finishing up the end game. But up to that point, you could technically consider it a beta release or very late alpha, to where all you have is a little content, but your core loop, your sword slashes, your combat, in our case, the healing and the game over state and the mana bars, all that stuff, being fully done would be a solid place to be for early access. And it's really, to sum it up, it's an electronic suggestion box. That's how people use it, and that's how it's the best part I think you can utilize it for. It's just getting everything, is just crowdsourcing everything that is right or wrong with your game, and quick little posts. Some little testers there. Okay, so what we realized early access is not. It is not a place for particularly constructive feedback or criticism in the way of saying that everyone is looking for something different when they look for criticism or feedback, and everyone's unique in how they do that, and it's not necessarily going to be the best place for that without maybe a community manager enforcing very strong rules or guidelines or locations to do it inside the Steam forums or the Discord. So we didn't have a lot of good success on that. In the very end, right after we released, we realized early access is not a good place for experimenting for all the reasons we talked about earlier, where your core loop needs to be done. Because if your core loop isn't going to be done, we're going to go on this a little later, you're going to have a major change, and major changes are not handled very well by players. I've experienced that myself when I started off in the industry working on games in progress, and it took years of introspection and kind of just thinking about why did I not like that game after like the first month prototype we made. And it's really as simple as just change. Change is when you've gotten really good, you've mastered a game and it's in the current state it's in, and then another build or patch comes out that just completely removes a system or changes a gameplay element that you were really, really happy with or comfortable with, really feel comfortable with. It's really tough to make that transition. It's like having the rug pulled out from under you, even though in our experience, we feel it was every major change did go better.
Yeah. And I would say, like, we definitely had a couple points where there were very clear major changes that, kind of soured people's opinions that were, before those patches, very happy about the game. And, some of them, I think, did come around, by the time we got to full release, but it's a tough pill. Change is a hard pill for anybody human to swallow. And even, if we're talking about the big changes, I would say even the small changes that we thought were kind of minor, there's somebody who's like, oh, I'm kind of bummed about that. I kind of like that. Like, even if it's not the end of the world to them, it's just kind of, oh, that's too bad. I like the way it was, Yeah. So it's not that you can't make changes. It's just that you shouldn't. If you can avoid it, you should do that. So if you can get something as baked as possible, you should do that. You should hold off and bake it.
Right. If you have paying customers and they're going to treat this thing as basically a ready-to-play game, you're just asking for trouble if you're going to change major game elements, and that's just normal. I've seen it throughout development in my career. So, All right, now for crowdsourcing ideas. Game design is one of the weirdest forms of job, art form, whatever you want to call it, there is, and it's definitely something that I realized you kind of get more from the gut and just pure experience. And then prototyping, and then prototyping again, and it's not really something that works well on paper, and that's what crowdsourcing ideas is really. It's basically like trying to just kind of do mental exercises on, you think this would be good, or what would be nice if we did this, and 90% of features can sound great on paper or in a post, but once you get in there, you're not going to know until you prototype it. So that's one thing that early access, what we went to, we found out this wasn't the best place.
Yeah, as far as crowdsourcing, we kind of hit on that in the previous slide, but it really is. You can crowdsource things that people think are issues, but you definitely can't crowdsource the solutions. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah,
as far as feedback and crowdsourcing.
Yeah, but it's the designer definitely. It's your job if you're making this game to figure out what the problem is, and not to take anything at face value, because that's not how you're gonna solve really hard game design problems. Support structure. So that was kind of the first slide where we described, back and forth conversations, making friends of all the community members, and, hey, just a general, good-natured, looking forward to getting on Discord today. We had this conversation yesterday. Can't wait to to continue that. It wasn't really that complex. It was more just what's the latest? What's coming down the road? What's the next patch? What did you change? Very, very, very short and simple, and that's how you should go into early access. Just really keeping people informed, and maybe quick little conversations about stuff that's changed. But nothing too personal. No kind of support structure there that you should kind of go in expecting of your community.
And your community is not just going to naturally keep growing and I mean, maybe sometimes this does happen. I'm sure it does in small percentages. You get lucky and it'll just kind of grow itself, and that's great. But you have to really, what we should have planned for was it being a full-time job to grow the community and manage the community, and we really underestimated the amount of time that would take away from development, being that I was primarily art and he was primarily code, and we had kind of even split, and we were trying to make this game, and we were trying to get it out, and we did as much management as we could, but I think realistically, we probably would have hired a community manager if we could have, so that we'd say, hey, this is your job, this is your full-time job, and then that's how you're successful, right, with early access in a way that we weren't able to do. So
so that's to summarize that, your game's core loop should be complete. Just which we'll go into a little later, is the best ways to do that is with friends and contacts. Tried and true way, just showing it to your buddies. How does this work? What do you think's wrong with it? And also using your guts. Players want constant updates and posts, as they should. And players are not developers, so entertain them. Give them information, give them updates. Bring up fun little facts about your game. That's really what they're there for, and that's what you should be there for. And that's where both sides are going to get the most out of early access. What we did right. Playtest videos. boy, oh boy, these are the best thing you can possibly get, because different designers can have different ways that they do their iteration. But for me, it's watching playtest videos, watching where players don't know what they need to do, or watching players use strategies you didn't expect, and basically iterating as needed. And playtest videos are the best for that. So Twitch was huge. Twitch was huge for iterating games, game iterations. And any videos that Discord users would post as well were pretty helpful. Although typically they were, we'll go into that a little later, but typically they weren't specifically for playing the game, but they did help find strategies that we needed to iterate on.
And here's a little pro tip that I think was personally really cool. We wanted to find Twitch videos, but when you have a smaller community, people may not want to post every time they're going on stream. And also, there's probably people playing your game that aren't in your Discord. And also, it's a little creepy if you're just Googling your game on Twitch and then post it in your own Discord. So what we did, instead of me promoting other people's streams, because I was like, it just seems a little too much, right? It just seems a little crazy ex-girlfriend. So what we did instead was Jason wrote a bot that we had sending Twitch streams to our secret Discord channel. And I thought that was actually so awesome and helpful. So anytime our game was played on Twitch, it would secretly go to that channel. The channel was just me and Jason. We would get as much benefit out of it as possible. They didn't know we were necessarily lurking. They didn't know that the people on the game were developing, literally watching every move. But we were creeping a lot of streams, since it was out. So that was a really cool part of it. Was kind of the secret open development thing that we did as well.
Yeah.
The playtest videos were so helpful.
Exactly. Yeah. The last thing I could say about this is that as a designer, players will always tell you 10 times more with what they do during gameplay than what they can possibly say to you, or write to you. It's just how your brain works. I mean, games are weird, and your brains, work better just playing through it and trying to make it work. All right, so we had some luck with marketing too. Huge part of this was getting that Kind of Funny cast on E3, as well as a few key YouTube videos.
We also Splattercat. You're talking about Splattercat probably, and then because he's awesome. And also we got to be in the Indie Mega booth. Our game got to be selected to be the GDC Indie Mega booth. So we had, right before early access, we had a bunch of things like that that was kind of what, I wouldn't say forced our hand, but really pushed us to wanting to go into early access as kind of like unfinished as we were, because, and I would say in the grand scheme of things, it would be hard to make a different decision because, when it's your first real game from your studio, you need to pick up as many views and as many eyes as you can. So kind of having those opportunities was super great. And the reason we had those opportunities was we made, essentially after the game jam, we made a very quick kind of I guess it's a vertical slice, but basically a little demo that kind of summed up what we were trying to do. So I would say it's probably worth it if you could do a quick vertical slice. Anyways, I guess that's a whole nother topic. But for us, that was definitely, that helped us a lot.
Vertical slices are king, especially if you can submit it to a game conference like Mega Booth, that's all you need.
And believe me, we didn't think we were going to get, we weren't like, oh, this is going to happen. We were very shocked, but we were so glad that we submitted. So got those wish lists up. Oh, yeah.
So another thing we, in the game retrospect, we did right was that most player suggestions we ignored is a little not exactly correct. Really, the best way I've described it whenever we think about it is you just got to take all player suggestions as a whole and see the patterns. And then even once you see the patterns, that surface level problem that you're getting isn't probably the solution. It's like I was saying before, it says to the designer, you have to get to the root of the problem that caused these suggestions in the first place. So I only mentioned this, I do see sometimes developers can take suggestions at face value, and that's not necessarily wrong, but it's definitely going to probably bump up your development time as you try to put out all those suggestion fires, basically.
Yeah, treat it like deciphering a puzzle.
Yeah, exactly. All right, stuck to our guns on major decisions. Yeah, towards the end of development, we made a few major changes that were universally hated by the vocal minority, but we knew from playtesting and sticking to our guns that it did make the game design better from basically a pure design standpoint. So that's important if you're sure that what you've done is making the game design and your pillars and your direction that you want the game to go better, then hopefully you have those, so you know you can lean on those and say, I know this is where the game needs to go. I'm just going to bite the bullet on this one.
Yeah, and to clarify that just a little bit, though, obviously you go to our Steam page and you could definitely figure out with some Steam posts what we're specifically talking about. But to clarify that just a little bit, what we mean by sticking to our guns and kind of knowing how people were going to react, it was because we had players that were used to playing our game for, a year and a half, 2 years in early access, and they were used to it a certain way. But we knew this change was going to be, we're going to make the game much more accessible to our target market. And really that's what it came down to. It was, do we keep our current players happy, or do we really target that target market, 100%? And so, it was a really tough pill to swallow, but I think, we made the right choice in the end.
Yeah. So, and a lot of that was helped with keeping track of stats of players. So for this, the biggest decision, basically, we saw players, I forget the exact percentage, but the vast majority couldn't get past like the second level. They couldn't get past like 20 minutes. And so we had to make a choice of where we had some hardcore people that really like the current design, but they're power players who can basically, they could probably ace Dark Souls if they want, without even trying. Or do we want this to be a more accessible game that, 50 to 75% of players can get through and decide that, then so they can decide they like the game on merits other than difficulty. So that was what our guns was good.
And I was just going to add too, like as we were going and adding these features and kind of making the game more hardcore and raising the difficulty without really realizing it in early access, we did see return rates from new players go up. And so that was also a big reason why we made this decision, and we did see those return rates go back down. So, I mean, some of these decisions, when you see all the context for all of the data, it does explain a little bit what's going through the dev's head, right? But they all made sense in the context, and it was great that we did stick to our guns, because otherwise, I bet, not even a bet, I know our reviews would be worse and our return rates would be higher if we hadn't have done that. So,
stick to your guns.
That's really what it comes down to.
Guns and data. We made the best out of it. Yeah, towards the end, you had to take the good with the bad, and you stick by your decisions, and then you just hope that you made the best possible game. And in the end, we got lots of great reviews. Most reviews of new players, they were loving it. They were kind of digging the game, which is all I really wanted. So that was basically we just focused on that. Had a really good release, and that was
And talking about real quick, talking about transitioning from early access to full release, we made sure to get new screenshots. We made sure to redo the trailer. And by redo the trailer, I mean we took it and we just kind of retooled it with new video clips, but it's still the basic framework. And we just basically made sure everything looked and felt and was as polished as possible to set us up. I know it sounds, of course I would do that, but when you're getting new release, it did feel like an extra chore to do, and we were tempted on not doing some of those things, but we did do some of those things, and not trying to pat ourselves on the back, but just making sure, people, when it comes to, even if you've been on the game for 2 years, if you're really trying to button it up, you just make sure you do button it up. So.
Right. Cool. Well, we did wrong.
Here we go.
All right. No community manager. I'll make the entire slide this if I could, because that's really what early access is. You are getting a community, and people are playing your early game. And if you can't manage that response, then you probably shouldn't go into early access at all, especially if you're not that kind of developer who can do both. Possibly released too early, but like we said, this was a weird game with a weird design that basically the only thing I would say that was really too early was that we released with a few bugs that were pretty prominent in the first build, but besides that, we didn't really know. We went in just not knowing exactly how early we were until 6 or 8 months later. So yeah, we went in the best as late as we could, but like we've kind of been summing up you should really be happy with your core loop, like very happy before you really want to go into early access. All right, experimented with design too much for the previous reason. We basically had this one screen game jam game, very simple, but people loved it. Instead of just kind of going with that, I kind of wanted to do this sort of Pikmin direction, and then kind of wanted to make it a roguelike, and then we just, all these things that still made it a very unique and interesting title from a design perspective, but in the end, we figured out that just making it as simple as the Game Jam game, with sort of the roguelike elements we put in there, really ended up making the game kind of the best it could be, and we didn't need to bother with all the extra experimenting screens and features that we played with over the years. So that was kind of a part like that that we remember. Didn't have the time for extra polish, so this was that also, like, all that experiment time could have been spent into adding, as Stu used a good word, the soul of the game. You know, funny little characters, surprise mechanics. A little more. We could have put a little more game feel in there. You know, your traditional juice elements. And yeah, we just eventually, in the end, just needed to wrap up the game and didn't quite have the time we needed to just really get a few just core elements popping like we could have hoped, but still worked out.
Yeah.
What we wish we did. So in retrospect, heavy engagement with the community. Like we said, you're in early access. That means you were going into it because you want to engage the community first and foremost, not because your game just isn't done yet. So that's super important. Wish we'd done that more. And within the community, we wish we had possibly addressed bad behavior a little earlier. We're going to start transitioning into like the tone of early access that we had over the 2 years. We had, generally, responses were good and pretty, fine, neutral, just people enjoying the game and just chatting a little bit, talking what they like about it, talking what they want to change, just, general development stuff, but you can't have some people that can really drag down the tone of your forums and your Discord. And really just laying down the ground rules. Darkest Dungeon is a great example of this. They basically had a similar situation, or similar progression that we did, where just making major changes can really change the tone and attitude of your community, and basically having a community manager to be there to kind of lay the ground rules of what's proper discourse and what isn't is super important in that instance. And we didn't really do a whole lot of that. We kind of let the Discord just kind of run wild.
Yeah, and I would say, we just had to be hands off to get the game done. So really, it just comes down to hiring that you find a community manager.
Yeah. And like I said before, keeping closer to the original design. If you have a sure thing, don't touch it. Just try to build on it. Don't poke at it too much. Yeah. It's good. Just polish it. We had a third place Game Jam game, and we went a little crazy with it. And we should have just basically finished it, but almost we should have improved what was there, completed, added content, and just kind of left it at that. So that's really kind of the best thing I think early access would have been good for, and kept us to the tenet of making sure your core game loop was good. Our core game loop was good, and we kind of experimented with it a little too much. So that's why I wish we kind of just had kept a little closer to that original design and was saved us some headaches. Relying more on friends and contacts. You've got your buddies, your awesome Unity networking guys. Use basically reach out and try to find as many people and that you trust to play the game and give you good feedback as possible. And that'll help you get to that point where you feel like your core is good. And at that point, you can kind of transition to getting feedback from the internet and the gaming community in general. So it'll be a much smoother transition is what I felt there. I wish we had done before release.
Well, and I will say, before our full release, I do think, some very key conversations help us validate some decisions, and really, you having just another person that's a little bit outside as a sounding board, it isn't in your community is good sometimes. So I think it really helped us. So yeah, the few people that helped us do this, it was very valuable as well.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go into the community a little deeper. Thoughts on it earlier. Listen to the player, but act on the problem. the player is definitely telling you the symptoms, but they don't exactly or necessarily know the problem. That's your job. So whenever you get little feedbacks or critiques, definitely take a second to think about why did this player do this? Why did this player feel this way? And act on that, because that'll always get you better results in new iterations. All right. Yep, not too, like we said before, not exactly interested in a kind of back and forth dialogue, but that's fine. That's really not what early access is for. It's for updates and, excited about the game. Little, quick and dirty conversations about how things are going in development. Yep, mostly want to post critiques like we posted in our little statistics earlier. And but we don't want to get too negative there because, like we said, it was very useful in certain aspects. So some helpful player posts showing off how they were breaking the game. So a lot of these, the players don't even realize how much help they're doing or being to the development because they're posting like little videos of how broken a current character is or something similar to that. And really, the best thing you can do is look at that video, study it, and make sure you fix every single aspect that they showed in that video so that they basically could never make that video again. And that was very helpful for fixing a lot of just pure game design, balancing, and gameplay elements that we saw that came up during development. Bug reports, of course, like we went over. Strategies and builds that are overpowered, which is kind of goes into the first one a bit. They want to post, players want to break your game, so pay attention and iterate on that. Okay, so some stuff that we found that weren't the most helpful, just to list them here. Suggestions and more content posts. We've even made like a suggestions channel. We quickly realized over how normal that is to just play a game and immediately have a list of things that you would want. Like we said, that's just totally normal, but in terms of development iteration, doesn't do you much good because there's technically infinite things you could add to your game, and you got to figure out how you're going to finish it. So really just kind of listening the best you can. Maybe every once in a while, a cool suggestion will pop up that you haven't thought of, but usually it's not going to do you much good to add too much to the game for suggestions. Critiquing diatribes. So every so often you'll get the 1 or 2 page response or something, or their thoughts or views in the game, or either not liking something, or maybe you have a player who's very, very wordy, who has like lots and lots of opinions about the game. But I found that these typically, as you'd expect, there's really not much you can do to kind of digest that much information on what really is a pretty simple problem. I mean, our game's not too complicated, and but it was weird. So it took a So trying to dive too deep into it in written form, we really couldn't get too much out of that from the player developer standpoint. So yeah, that was some stuff we couldn't get as much as we wanted out of players. This is what I wanted to kind of touch on: elaborate meme videos. These are something that existed and maybe ages me a little bit, but there's a lot of players. Probably the most involved that players would get. They would make these videos with sound effects and meme posts and zoom in effects. Not unlike you would have seen in like a quick meme video. They would make it out of clips of gameplay from our video. And like I was saying with playtest earlier, I saw that they were playing the game, recording it, but they were heavily editing it with kind of as a joke reel. And that was the one part. The missed opportunity I felt is that the players were showing their play tests, but they were trying to make like a funny video out of it instead of something that could possibly help us with the next iteration. So that was something I saw a lot. Just wanted to touch on because that happened. That was probably the most involved we would have players get with the game discourse.
And I would say probably the community manager would say, elaborate meme videos is probably a good thing, and I'm sure it is a good thing. I think it's a healthy thing. It's just a way for them to engage. If they're making those, they're engaging. But yeah, if you're trying to get context or any kind of like, wait, is that breaking? You're not going to be able to figure it out through the meme video because they clearly have an agenda while they're editing that video. So really, there's no real nuggets in there. So it's, I guess, and this is something I don't know that we knew how to do. I mean, but I think, having a conversation, saying, hey, can we see some of that footage, or can you share some, trying to figure out what really happened there, without dissuading them from making those videos is probably key. But yeah, I don't know that we mastered that.
No, yeah, I'm still not quite sure how to handle that particular situation, because the videos themselves are about breaking the game. So I'm like initially excited, like, oh man, I figure out how to fix this player class, and then but that's not the intention of the video, so we couldn't get too much out of those. And this one's an interesting one: negative criticism. I don't work well with negative criticism. I'm more kind of a neutral to kind of what's right with the game, because I really feel that like everything is potentially wrong with the game, and the only way you can know how to go forward is by deciding what's right with it and to work on that, or to improve on that. And but that's not how most discourse happens in terms of game critiquing. So I wasn't able to get as much out of a lot of the critique on the in the community as I would have liked, because most of it is over what's missing from the game. And technically speaking, there's infinite things missing from the game, is how I tend to look at it. So I always try to say, so what's in the game that's great, and what can I improve on it? But that's not a typical way of video game development discourse. So I wasn't able to get as much from the community on the criticisms as I would have liked as well. All right, so yeah, I just basically had to ignore them for the most part. So that was some missed opportunities, I guess, that could have been solved with better community guidelines, or better engagement with the community manager that could have steered that criticism into something a lot more tangible or actionable. But that's not my skill set, so I wasn't too good at doing that. And in some cases, that can actually bring down the tone of your entire server, where everyone's just posting negative criticism and mean videos and stuff that's not really adding much to the dialogue. And so probably would have been good to kind of address that more directly, which we did not really. Because it's up to you to keep things constructive. I'm not blaming the community one bit, because that was on us. That is on us to basically drive the conversation, keep things positive, or in the way that works best for us. And if it wasn't, it was kind of an action item we kind of just let we didn't really act on, and that was that was on us. Here's an example of one of the meme things. It's basically like these making a meme out of certain aspects of the game. It got a little out of hand at one point, where it was like every other post, and there's one video out there, I'm pretty sure they spent more time and effort than we did on our Steam trailer. They get really elaborate. Okay. And then to kind of follow that thread into just something not really related to early access, but something we wanted to touch on in case you want to go down this road of early access and engaging in your community, is really about the devs. Is something we noticed in usually not direct conversations in Discord, mainly on the Steam forums and reviews. But something to be aware of is that most posts mentioning the devs almost always negative. There are even some users that wouldn't even directly address us, even when in Discord. They would just talk to us like in the third person as the devs, and it was a little disheartening, because it's a general. It's a general topic in game development in general. Is you see a lot of this starting with No Man's Sky, and a lot of things that came from that, and you could there's a million other examples of that in the community. And we experienced a lot of that as well, and it's just worth kind of touching on that. It's a real issue, and to be aware of it, and why it's important to address those bad apples that can kind of poison the well of your Discord or Steam attitude and mood. And again, is the best reason for a community manager. All right, transition to full release, the big one. Messaging and expectation management. Stu, you were touching on this one earlier. You want to go into that?
Yeah. So one thing we learned was, I talked about it a little earlier, how we knew we had a big change that we wanted to do, and it was basically making the game a little bit more focused on different healer spells and different team combinations, because you have the ability to, we have different fighters, and you can make your group that you go out with to heal, you can make them have, archers or, mages or whatever you want in there. So kind of just reassessing the Steam page, reassessing the feedback we got in Discord, and just kind of, put it all in one ear. It doesn't come out the other. Let it process a little bit, and then you realize, okay, well, here's the things people are missing that we think is cool about the game. So let's make sure we put that in a big bullet point at the top of the page, and let's make sure we have some screenshots that really show off these cool things that are in the game right now. So, kind of seeing, what people already get, what they already like, and seeing what they're missing. And that really helped us when we made some page changes to our Steam page, and we readjusted. Like I said, we redid our trailer, we reworked our trailer, we got screenshots. We did it with this thought in mind. Hey, let's focus on customization. Hey, let's focus on healing and customization. So that's really what it came down to, as far as those couple of bullet points. Oh, and then also the price drop. So we knew there was going to be a certain sect of people that were going to be happy, and they were probably going to make their voice heard, because they were already kind of making their voice heard in the Discord. And in order to kind of mitigate that, we thought, this is our first game. Let's drop that price. Let's have a nice sale. So we actually sold the game at $15 in early access, and then we realized, what that means, and what what the player expects as far as how many hours, and they really kind of talked about how they wanted a story mode. There were specific things that were brought up a few times, as if they were measuring us, that price itself, against other games of that price, 1-to-1, like it's the same game, right? So we were like, you know what, it'd be better to drop that price to $10, have a discount on launch, and just try to harness as much good faith and as many good reviews as possible, get as many sales early on as possible, versus just trying to make as much money as possible, right? And we did that because we also had the flexibility of being a super small team, and we had already, over the course of early access, about broken even. Am I right about that, Jason? I know we broke even, if not before launch, but right after launch. So that is the positive side to all of this, right? Mm-hmm. Since we were so minimal, we didn't pay a community manager.
Oh, yeah.
we did actually break even a lot quicker, right? So, so I think at the end of the day, I think we made the right decisions there. And then what was the last bullet point?
Oh, just reviews, and the real reason EA is good for beta testing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a major thing that kind of clarified a lot of things we thought were going on. Where especially with the major gameplay changes, there are very few, if maybe one or two, maybe two negative reviews that happened after release were actually based on the game. They were only because they liked that feature in early access, and now it's gone. So thumbs down. And we had all these really glowing, really nice positive reviews that were just really heartening. But yeah, I would, it's neither here nor there. The real issue, I believe, that caused it was we experimented a little too much, and that's a lot. That's a big, heavy load to put on your players. So keep that in mind. If you have a great core and you don't want to mess with it, and you feel like you might mess with it, be aware that the players that will be reflected in review scores when you make major changes to your game. Conclusion. He finished again. All right. Really, I'd say we kind of finished in spite of early access. We learned a whole lot. We started really early, and we experimented way too much. And we learned a whole lot of what we really think early access is about. But really, for me personally, I was mostly full time on the project. At one point, there was really kind of a burnout period, and I can attribute most of that to dealing with the daily kind of dread of seeing more, maybe criticisms or critiques of the game on a Discord or a Steam server or a Steam review. And I've been dealing with about 8 months. I can legitimately say there was some very strong burnout that happened, and basically the game went full stop. And we didn't really continue on it for almost a year, right, Stu?
Yeah. Yeah, that's about right. But also, I would say it was 2020. So A lot of other people were also going full stop and a lot of, so like in one way we probably got a little leeway because of that. But yeah, I mean, we realized we did have the game at a point where it was good enough, warranted for the price, like, overall, like the return rate was, higher than we wanted, right? But like the majority of people were still enjoying the game. We were just listening to the vocal minority, daily. So it was best to kind of step away, kind of take a break, and then come back full steam to kind of finish the game off. So that's what we did. So
yeah, definitely silver lining there, where basically came back from a year of just
So the break was very valuable, is what I'm saying. We definitely made the right decision with that break at that time, because if we hadn't, who knows? What a worse. It may not be out right now, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it's neither. Yeah, it's just basically at this point, just this is what happened, and I think it would made the best out of it for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, so not for heads down developers. Hire that community manager. You can't say that enough. And also great for the last 10% of development.
Mm-hmm.
You're good to go with your core loop. This game is fun, just needs content and a bit of some momentum and some hype. And let's get that thing in early access and just make the best marketing push that we can. That's what we really feel now. Okay, make sure your core is fun and complete. Early access is great for marketing and beta testing. Can you handle nonstop criticism, for better or worse? Yeah, it's not negative. Don't let it come off that way. I mean, this stuff is important. You just need to be able to handle it, or have someone who can kind of steer the conversation in a way that's helpful for you as a developer. And trust your gut. You're the designer. Don't let anyone else let you think otherwise. Your job as a designer is to figure out that problem. These are legitimate design problems, like that any other designer in any other industry, whether it's making door handles or making video games, has to figure out the best way to solve it. And player feedback and criticism is the way that it's going to help you figure it out. But you just got to have a good path of getting there. Know the limits of your player feedback, like we said. But still, utilize the strengths of the community. Bug testing, breaking games, getting people engaged. And that's all we have.
All right. Great stuff. Thank you, gentlemen. Really informative. I wish we'd had this right after the community, non-toxic communities roundtable. So many tie-ins, so many crossovers. A lot of good stuff going back and forth in there. A lot of them, like, you don't necessarily solve what the player asks for. You solve what they actually need. You have to listen between the lines, as it were.
Right.
And one thing you raised an interesting concern. I've heard that from a few different indies, that, boy, they always add in a community manager. Maybe we should go in and group source a community manager for a few of the indies here.
Right.
To do 3 or 4 different projects, spend 10 hours a week on each one at least, to take some of the burden off the devs.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Devs got to stay in there, but someone else who could jump in there be pretty handy. I got a few questions for you. I'm a big fan of playtest videos. Wrote an article about it for Gamma Sutra, and thought that was a great idea. And the bot for crawling for that information was great. Did you just search for the tags? Are you going by titles? How are you searching for that?
It was just a quick Python script. I just basically made a call to the Twitch API every 30 seconds or something, and then if it found looking for heals was being streamed by somebody, boom, we just got it. I hooked that into the Discord, so it would make a new Discord link for us to check it out.
So were you searching for the tag? Because, I mean, the way Twitch is set up, an early access game often isn't going to have its own Twitch tag for a while.
We did. We were lucky enough to get that after the E3 post to help us get that tag. So that's basically the reason we were able to make that happen.
Yeah, I made sure to set that up beforehand, since we knew we were going to have that announcement at that, kind of online E3 thing.
No, that's a valuable tool. I can get that going early, before early access. Have your Twitch tag ready. That's handy.
All the Twitch streamers, they are your best friend.
So
yeah, even when they don't know it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Absolutely agree. So if you don't have a community manager and it is the devs doing it, how much time do you recommend devoting to it total? I mean, not individual person. It's like 20 person hours a week. What do you think?
I think combining the two, I see in this typical situation, I see a lot of success. A big one. I've seen even some local devs. A big one I always think of is JW from Vladimir. He would do a lot of, when he was making Nuclear Throne, he did a whole lot of just live dev streams. He would do twice a week, and those would be for several hours. So like, I think it's 3 to 6 hours. He would just stream him doing developing the game and answering a few questions along the way. And so basically multitasking a little bit, but getting two birds with one stone, I think, is the best I've seen in this sort of situation with a community manager.
Yeah, that's probably the way to go. But for us, that was a bit out of our comfort zone, especially with how I can't even express how much we just felt behind on the project the entire, which is crazy, but that's just a nature of working on a project. I think you always feel like, I need to be spending more time on this. So we're very much the heads down devs that he was talking about. So yeah, but maybe one day, or maybe in a future project. I've thought about streaming, and Jason, he's talked about streaming before, but definitely not on that one, and not that wasn't the time for us to do that.
A better scoped project. So yeah, we definitely over-scoped like all the experiment.
Yeah, there's too many unknowns.
Yeah, too many unknowns that just require 100% of your brain, and spreading it between that and streaming is really difficult programming. So yeah, it's on a different game title, I could see that working out pretty well.
Yeah.
Okay, two last important questions. First of all, I'm sorry, we had one in chat from Kimiko. What are the plans for updating the game and DLC?
We're going to do one quick update for the summer sale, but besides that, the game is more or less done, minus anything major that comes up. We're really happy with where we ended up, and we're ready to move on to the next project. And
we're foaming at the mouth about the next project. So we have too many projects we want to work on.
We were just gushing about it. I can't wait.
Excellent. Well, Dean Borg is giving a shout out to Kardic's Wild Vines dev streams. So
Yep.
He's really good at doing that. He's
doing great.
Yeah.
Right,
and Eric as well.
Questions for you. First most important question, did you make a list of those best testers that you had in early access to recruit them and to share with the rest of us?
Oh, no, not neither one really. We had a couple. One was this awesome guy from, was it Siege? No, it was
Momocon.
I think it was Momocon, yeah. We saw
DreamHack.
DreamHack or Momocon, and he was just annihilating the game, just doing really great. And immediately, I'm like, Stu, give him a key. And he was our best tester. He was the best community member by far. It was, man. So yeah, definitely keep track of who's really good at your game and really enjoying it, and then jump on it, because just make sure you keep in touch with them, give them a free key, like really do your best to kind of. But if they're liking the game, it's really a win-win for both the developer.
Yeah, because if you're like us, I mean, the onboarding of the game isn't in there yet, and there's going to be people who aren't going to be able to get past the first, second, third level, whatever it is, right? There's going to be the point where everybody hits that wall, and if you find somebody who can just go through that wall so easily, you just need to take advantage. Take advantage is not the right way to say that, but you need to utilize them.
All right, invite them out to Siege. Some more studios can take advantage of them. I mean, give them free stuff.
Yeah, free keys.
Hey, those people. They're so good.
All right, last question. You're talking about redoing your approach to early access, so you come in later. You've got a more polished game. But it looks to me like the number one result you got out of this was a more polished game from going in so early. Great community is wonderful, etc. But number one, you got a more polished game by coming out of it, by going into early access. What would be your best result if you went in with a more polished game? What would you really be looking for out of early access if that was the case?
For that case, it would really be balancing. We had, it's a roguelike, so there's just an uncountable number of instances where you have this item in this class, and now the game breaks. But not even like physically breaks, but now the gameplay is broken, and every enemy is just like a one-hit kill. I would say that sort of playtesting would be the biggest thing on a game that's more finished to figure out.
Yeah, and think about it this way. What we saw was every time we added content, people were excited, even if the content was broken, especially if it was broken. But when it took us a while to add content, people got less excited. And then when we did a major game change, that's when people really soured on it. So what we would do is not do major game changes and just essentially set ourselves up to where all we have left is polishing content. So it's just happy. I mean, you know, I'm sure there'll be ups and downs, but we'll set ourselves up for a much happier tone, vibe. Everybody just like, oh, cool, new content. I think if you pre-plan that, especially if you're, you know, in the final phase of launching a game, you're probably already, you can kind of tell, oh, we just have, you know, this stretch left. That's the time to do it. I think that's because you're not really giving yourself any rope to hang yourself at that point. Granted, I mean, we would have missed the marketing aspects, so.
Oh yeah, we can't say it was a bad idea to go in when we did, but Stu mentioned it earlier. We just continued to immediately after our game jam. We would have had it at that point by the time we released.
Yeah, I know. That's
like don't
wait a year on it.
Yeah, good thing. Go for it. Get that game done.
All right, great stuff. Gents, if you wouldn't mind going into our regular voice general channel, and other folks who want to join them in there, Rod Obando is going to join us there also to talk about SimFest 2021.